Now that I have cut the handholds and the decorative curve on my ends, I want to cut a similar decorative curve on the sides, and I can use this cut here as a template so that I can have a similar curve here. Now, I also need to make sure that I start down the same amount as I did with this guy, and this was a 1/2 inch down on either side, so I'm going to measure down a 1/2 inch, and this was 2.5 inches in, so I'm also going to measure 2.5 inches in here. Now, I'm using basically a 13 by 17 setup because that was the plywood and these are the pieces that I have. Your mileage may vary, as they say. So I'm going to start by measuring down a 1/2 inch on each side, in 2.5 inches, and I'm going to figure down another 1/2 inch, and we'll see what that looks like. See if that's the size, the distance down that I want to go. So let's come a little bit. All right, down a 1/2 inch on this side, and down a 1/2 inch on this side. Mark it, and then I'm also going to go down an inch, down on the other side. Down an inch also. All right, now we're going to go over 2.5 inches. Over 2.5 inches. And I'm making my marks very lightly because I don't want to gouge the wood by accident, because our poplar here is pretty soft as hardwoods go. All right, so I've got my 2 marks, and all the way across here I just want a straight line, and I'm going to have a curve down from the edges. So let's have a straight line connecting these 2 guys. All right, that looks pretty good. And I'm going to use this guy as my template, just turned upside down, because instead of having a curve from the middle and then down to the edge, I'm now going to curve down from the edge to the middle. So I'll flip it upside down, and we're going to start here and line up. So what I'm looking at over here is my pencil line lined up with the edge of this guy, and I can draw that curve, and I've got a curve here that matches the curve on the end, and I can do the same thing on this side. There we go. I got a little bump there from my edge there, but I have to pull out so we can see the hole. All right, so I've got my curve down, line across, curve up, and I'm doing this on the inside here so I can see that I still have 1.1 inches up. So this line here is going to be the bottom of the tray. Then I have 1.1 inches still up there, and then it goes up, and if I cut it right, should match up with this guy. So we're going to do the same thing on this guy. All right, now it's time to go cut these on the scroll saw. Cutting the decorative edges on our sides, making sure to cut on the waist side of the line, and sometimes helpful to mark off the waist side of the line with X's or squiggles or something, and keeping in mind that you can always cut more, so it's okay to undercut and leave waste, because then we can file it down or shave it down somehow. But once you cut past that, you can't uncut that wood. Also, for the curves here, it's useful to cut relief cuts in there. And also on this long piece, it's sometimes also useful to cut relief cuts to pop it out of the way as we're cutting. So we're going to start with some relief cuts and then go on cutting the long rail here. All right, first side done, and then we're going to do the other side. Also necessary, clean up the tabletop and get the debris out of the way. Decorative cuts made. Now the two sides, when I line them up, are not exactly. You can see this guy on the bottom is sticking out a little bit because I cut that curve more shallowly than the other guy. To clean up the edges so that they are identical, the tops so that they're identical, we have some flush trim bits where there is a bearing on the bottom of the bit and then the blade is above the bit. And we can set it in our router table, and I have one set in the router table right there, so that the bearing will roll along the bottom of whichever one of these guys I choose to be the bottom that is going to reference, and then cut off of the top one. And this is tall enough that we can go with one pass. And in order to do that, we're going to want to make sure that we have them facing each other, so we're going to have them set up so that the insides are touching just like they're going to be facing each other when we put it together. And I need to tape these together with our double-sided tape that we have here that is extremely sticky. And once we get this on there, it's going to be difficult to get off, so we need to get this right the first time. So this is, let's make sure that the bottoms and the edges are agreeing with each other. All right, so this guy is, let's see, can we see here? So this is going to be the bottom, and we're going to flush trim the top. Now I've had to remove the fence because we're going to be curving around a little bit, and the fence would get in the way. So raising the bit up so that it's going to reference on the bottom here and then cut all the way through the top. So I'm going to, no, that's fine. We don't want it to be too much above that and sticking out. And we're going to be running from the one end around to the other end and keeping our fingers away from the spinning bit. All right, now in this case we can trade top and bottom, because on the one side I cut the curve too shallow, but then on the other side, on the other guy, I cut the curve too shallow. So we can flip this upside down, and over here it shouldn't make a difference, but over here it will. So we're going to flip this upside down, and this side will become the reference side, so we can deepen this shallow curve over here. And now these guys agree with each other. And we can do that on the ends as well to make sure that the ends are also symmetrical.